not that tall. It's been a long time coming. I'm pretty sure he texted me, told me when my start date was, and that's when I started in the choir. And I said, "You've never even heard me sing. How do you even know I know how?" He said, "It's not about you and me," which it wasn't. Being there at that time, let me back up. I'm a miracle. Standing here before you today, I am a straight up miracle. I am a statistical nightmare. I probably should have never graduated high school. At a very young age, the first time that my mom disappointed me, I was not even a year old, and I had climbed up steps similar to these and turned around and looked at her and took a step down, and she walked away as she smoked her cigarette. And I remember that very vividly. That stuck out in my head because that would be the first of many things that she would do to me in my life. We were home alone, so nobody would know. Nobody could tell on her because at that time I wasn't quite yet talking. There were many instances that she failed me again and again over the years, and it's been a long time of grieving that, knowing that I will never have parents that truly love me the way I should have or they could have. And there was something that overriding this when Pastor Tom had come to me and I said, "Are you sure they're ready for this?" And he goes, "I think you are." So several things have popped up on Facebook as I've trashed it, wrote it again, trashed it, wrote it again. It conveniently got deleted off my computer somehow. You know how that goes. There was one thing that said, "God said, I need you to get excited again. I need you to remember you're not in this thing alone. I'm working on your challenges. I've already assigned angels to you, so let go of the stress and trust me. I've got a pretty incredible ending in store. In fact, that's why you need to get excited again, because the happy ending I've got coming is going to rock your world." If you would have told me the beginning of my story and the way things would go, even if I was 10, when I was 20, and if I was 30, that I would be here at 40 years old delivering my testimony, and that I would be happy and be in a relationship that was healthy, and that my mind was okay, and I wasn't in a straitjacket, I would have told you you're crazy. I have endured my parents. My dad would get upset. My mom couldn't handle me, of course. I was typical ADHD on steroids. We've all had those little boys or whatnot that just couldn't keep their hands off anything, always needing to stay busy. My mind runs 90 miles an hour all the time. It still does. I wake up, drink coffee to slow it down, if that tells you anything, for the rest of the world. So my mom didn't know how to handle me. She was a young mom. She had me when she was 16. She had my little sister when she was 18. She did not partake in caring for us. When we got old enough to care for ourselves, we did. And in fact, I cared for my little sister that was 2.5 years younger than me all the time. I did laundry, dishes. I did all the women household chores, all of it, while my mom did whatever she wanted to do. That was my responsibility. My saving grace, my great-grandmother took me to church. She would come by on Sundays, wasn't supposed to be driving, hadn't had her license in a long time. So she would come by and I would hear the car come down the driveway. We had a 3/4 of a mile long driveway. I would hear it come and I would be like, "Oh," and I'd be ready because either my parents weren't home or whatever. So she would slide over, let me drive the rest of the way, and I was not old enough to do that. So they would come eventually looking for me about lunchtime, and they would find her car in the church parking lot, and my father was not going to say anything to my great-grandmother. So that kept me from getting in trouble that way. He was very vital, though, and there would be he would get upset with my mom and take it out on me. I grew up that way, walking on eggshells, and no offense to anybody, but he was a redhead. The irony that God would send me a redhead to be my partner in life, the irony. Let's just go. It took me a little bit to get over. And so I walked on eggshells my whole childhood. Whenever I got pregnant in high school, they forced me to get married, and literally 3 seconds changed my world forever. And they made me get married, and I had my oldest the day before my 17th birthday. I was mad. I was super mad at my mom. I was super mad at my parents, the way they treated me. How it happened, when you hold that baby, you instantly change. There's nothing, nobody can prepare you for it. I can tell you all day long it's going to change you, and you're like, whatever. But when you hold that baby, you realize there's more to everything than it's not just about me. So I knew, because at that point I was a high school dropout. My husband at the time did not want me to graduate high school, and he darn sure didn't want me to go to college. So going through that, there were angels in my life that have always been there, regardless of the situation, regardless of the timing. There's always been those little tidbits. And when I was in elementary school, the first time I remember the angels starting to, I was in 3rd grade, and my teacher, I was always the first one. If you needed a sheet of paper, I was on it. If you needed a pencil, I might not have had any, but I would have given you my last one. I never ran out. I always had extra paper in my desk, and I always had extra pencils, because she seen the good in me. She knew that I just loved people. It's what I do. Regardless of how I didn't get love, I gave it. I loved everybody. So stepping back to that, I had several teachers along the way, and I also had a teacher that took me to high school. I would go and walk my boys, because, I had one, so by the time I was supposed to graduate, I had 2 children. I would walk the boys to daycare 2 blocks away. She would pick me up in the mornings. She would take me to school, to her school. I would go to school all day, and she would drive me back home in the evenings, because, of course, I was left without a car, no means to get anywhere, so I wouldn't be able to do anything. And God put that on her heart to come and do that for me. I graduated high school with 2 kids. Statistically, you don't graduate high school with 1. I graduated with 2 kids in tow, 95% chance, 95 to 97% chance that I would not. So along the way, I always thought there's more. Like, reading was my outlet. I did not know how to read until a year later than my peers. I learned how to sight word read. So I had to double focusing. I had a learning disability. The odds were stacked against me. So I wanted to make something of myself, because my children, I did not want them to feel like that they got to quit. They didn't get that option. I wanted them to finish high school, and I wanted them to go to college. So as a single mom of 4 children, with 4 children at the time, I went to college. I not only completed high school, but I also completed college, not with 1 degree, but 2, because they told me I couldn't do it with 1, so I wanted to prove them wrong. So I did my elementary and my special ed. So I'm one of the very true special ed teachers that I know that actually went to special ed. And I actually learned phonics in college, which I don't think that's the way to go, but that's how I did it. My grandma and grandpa, my great-grandmother was a great influence. My grandma and my grandpa, all on my dad's side, they always they tried to do as much as they could. But there wasn't DHS like there is back then. I should have been taken away at a very young age, but I wasn't. And my last pair of shoes that my parents bought me, I was 12. After that, I was pretty self-sufficient, I worked odd jobs, did what I could whenever I could, got money anyway, cleaning houses for whatever. I cleaned the neighbor's house. Anywhere I could walk, I would go do stuff for money, and I was self-sufficient. After the age of 12, they did not buy me anything. So the teachers growing up made a huge influence, showed me what love was, made sure that I knew that it was okay. I was real skittish about hugs. Something I left out in my junior high-ish, I got mad. Like, I would walk down the hallways and they would be like, "Don't touch her, she's having a bad day." I tried to, that's what I got at home. So I didn't know how to actually have friends, and I couldn't get close to anybody because if you did, they seen your bruises, somebody would tell. It would just end badly. So growing up with that, having spouses that were absolutely wretched and horrible, going through all that and seeing that, and then I turned to teaching because that's, of course, what I wanted. That was my passion. My first class, they just graduated this last May. I've had several students along the way. Whether you were regular ed or special ed, you were mine. I've coached softball. And that was another thing. If they're like, "Oh, you can't teach me anything, I know everything," I go, "Let me tell you something." I've always had my glasses half full. I've never, not once, thought I couldn't do anything. And in fact, if you told me I couldn't do something, I would prove you wrong and take pictures to prove it. So that's always been So about it was my first teaching year. I was teaching 4th grade, and of course I got a regular ed job, and I thought that was awesome because usually if you get a special ed job, you're done. You're in special ed forever. And so I remember these guys, I had 7 severe-ish, should have been with an aide, kiddos. The other teachers didn't want these guys. They were the leftover class that nobody wanted, behavior issues, all that jazz. All of them have completed high school and graduated because I told them if they didn't, I would come find them and make them either way. So one of them texted me the other day and made sure he knew that he sent me a picture of his diploma. That's how. So I had these kids, and in February of that year, I had a baby boy that didn't make it. I was 6.5 months pregnant, and as a class, we went through that together also. And there's nothing like holding your son that you'll never be able to fix things for. And I was mad. God and I are going to have a talk, by the way. And at the time, I was so mad and so hurt by everything. And I was a part of the worship, had done all that, going to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. And I will never forget the doctor when he came in after I had Jesse. He said, "Cindy, of all people, you would take this kid and raise it. If he had anything wrong with him whatsoever, you would make his life okay. Because that's what you do, is fix things. That's who you are." He said, "I'm so sorry. I don't know why either." And the doctor and I had attended Sunday school for years. So we had that relationship. He said, I don't understand it either. He goes, "Because I've watched you do all this by yourself, but he's also been with you." And so we even prayed about it, and I was so hurt and so angry and so mad. And instead, I turned to my kids, and I loved on them just like I normally do, but with a greater passion. And I got up every day, and I did what I needed to do to heal me. I'm not going to say it was easy, because it wasn't. And some days it's not. Some days I still have my moments to where it's hard to be around people and whatnot because they don't understand. But in all reality, everybody has their different grief. Everybody's went through something. Everybody's went through a trauma of some sort. Everybody's went through something. So my thing with Pastor Tom, the fact that he texted me, I was still mad. Randy Dawn, Jesse would have been 8 in February. Randy Dawn, I was due a year later on their birthday. So my doctor looked at me and he goes, "You're never going to believe when her due date is." And I said, "Just don't say it out loud." Because I completely knew. And the fact that Randy Dawn, so, school's hard when school starts and that sort of thing, because you think I'm missing one. You think about the things you should have went through and that sort of thing, and that makes it difficult. But Randy Dawn, seriously, was God's way of you can still smile again. Because I'm not kidding you, that child has no idea how much joy she's brought to me. She's so ornery, so lovable, and if you don't like her, you will, because she will make sure you like her. She will do something crazy or whatever, but she's just that type of a kid. And so my school kids, I've always loved them. They know that there's an open door with me. They know it doesn't matter what it is. I don't know how many times the Stanleys, I tell you what, TJ, if you know TJ, he's not very sociable sometimes. He is way better than he was when I first got him too. But thanks to Sandy, I tell you what, that woman has worked her tail off to get that kid where he's at. And so I would have him an hour a day, which I don't think neither one of you care I tell this. I would have him an hour a day and he would go, "What do I got to do to get out of this?" And I'd go, "I tell you what, the last 10 minutes we'll talk about Pokemon and basketball stats. If you do everything I asked you to do for the next 40. Okay. That was it. So then he started interacting with his peers more, dancing at dances, different things. He even wrapped somebody up in football, which would have been something he wouldn't. I said, "Your stats are horrible, DJ. You've got to do something about that." It's just the little things like that. Like I have a niche. I walk into a classroom, I can pick them all out. "All you guys, come with me." The teachers are like, "Why would you want those guys?" I'm like, they will make the difference. They will absolutely, it's just crazy. Just a little bit of love goes such a long way. So my saving grace, always, I guess why, the sermon's titled, "Bless the Broken Road," because my road has been broken so many times, I couldn't even tell you. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. I could sit up here all day and tell you stories about it, but it's just not. And I tell you what, overcome that, and it's honest to God with God's angels, the helpers along the way, every single thing that he has sent me. Even Pastor Tom, you don't have to tell him I said that, but it's crazy when you, honest to God, just let God lead your life, what happens. And so Luke and I have been seeing each other for a year. Poor guy, I know, right? And whenever he started talking, I was like, he was just so sweet and just so genuinely nice. So it took me a minute and there's been many times I've just, we're both broken, but we're also both love each other and we love God, and that makes the world a difference. So if there's anything you get out of this, it's all about your attitude, all about leaning on Jesus. Totally. If that's the first things I tell my kids, did you pray about that? Somebody being mean, there's something going on. And that's what I tell everybody. If they're being mean to you, there's a reason. Sometimes they're having a bad day, something's happened, whatever. But as long as you love them regardless and love them through it, God works in the craziest, mysterious ways. Thank you.